Good morning, or good evening possibly. You join me today at the wheel of a rather fine automobile. This is a 1959 Bentley Continental S1, or S1 Continental if you prefer. One of England's finest automobiles. This car is about to be for sale with Riemann Danzy. Auction next week, I believe. If it would look good in your motor house, you may want to pay a visit to the link in the description below. And if you like reviews of unusual, interesting, different vehicles, then I would encourage you to visit the link in the description below. Now, shall we proceed with the review? I think that's an awfully good idea, don't you?
Proud to be sponsored by Diamond Bright, the car care products that have been keeping the furious fleet looking their best for a long time already. To find all you need to keep your car clean and protected, follow the link below to diamondbright.co.uk.
Hello, welcome to Furious Driving, and today we're taking style, class and old money values to another level. Yes, this is a 1959 Bentley S1 Continental. And just drink it in. Make the most of this because it's too good for you. This is a very special car indeed. And the Bentley S1 and its very, very close sister, the Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud one, were part of the Rolls-Royce and Bentley post-war comeback. First off, they brought out the R-Type design chassis, which was a precursor to this, and that evolved into the S-Type chassis, which is what we see here. If that wasn't good enough for you, there was another option on top, and that was the Continental. And the Continental was the cream of the cream, the bigger engine, the taller gearing, everything more expensive. So for a mere £7,500 in 1959, which is the price of a large country house, you can have this, the S1 Continental with Mulliner bodywork. And that's the interesting thing with these cars, because Rolls-Royce and Bentley didn't sell you a complete car. They sold you a running chassis and an engine effectively. And from there you'd be guided to one of their approved coach builders who would put on the body that you wanted. The vast majority of them though did get the standard H.J. Mulliner package, which is what you see here. Extremely elegant, extremely pretty. It's understated in a way that only real money and wealth can be. No ostentation, no flash, just a sense of presence. You just kind of feel the car is there, even without looking around to know it's there. You can tell something important is there. Now, I'm no kind of royalist and respecter of money for money's sake, but this thing is real class. There's a lot of the car. It's 5.4 meters long and 1.9 meters wide, and it weighs 1900 kilos. Believe it or not, this is only about that much longer than my Ford Crown Victoria, and about the same width and weight, believe it or not. Now, the way that this is styled is absolutely exquisite. This curve starts here, it's mirrored just here in this swage line. The side lights flow into the top of this crease, and both of these lines carry on beautifully down the length of the car. This one then blends into this swooping, rotating curve, while this other line falls behind it, and the whole lot just curves down elegantly into the rear of the car. This rear flank bulges out, suggesting power and purpose, very feline. And as you look back at the front of the car, you have this dip which ends rather Jaguar-like with the front headlights and the bulge of the bonnet. And the grille itself is another exquisite thing. It's not over the top. This is no Cullinan or Bentayga level of ostentation. This is just a nice, neat grille with a couple of big chrome bezeled headlights, because that was the style, and your little flying bee on the top. The whole thing is absolutely magnificent. It's so simple, yet so elegant. There's so many details which you almost don't notice because the car is, well, because it's so big, it absorbs them. But it's not been done to the point of over-embellishment. I'm a big fan of the style of this car. It is an absolute masterpiece. There is a second option with this car. You can have it as a two-door coupe rather than the four-door saloon. Those are worth an awful lot more, 2, maybe 3 times the amount of the money of this car. These go for between £80,000 to £120,000 depending on condition. So they're not cheap cars to start with. So taking off 2 doors, it's amazing how much more that can make it. I've seen one go for 450,000, I think it was. So yeah, they are substantial amounts of cash. Now, while many aspects of this car's design may be timeless and elegant, the centre opening bonnet is not one of those things. This really does mark it down as an early post-war design with this central hinge. This covers up the 4.9 litre straight 6. Now this was an upgrade on the standard car that Continental got. It's a bigger engine, higher compression. The name Continental was designed to infer that you could take this car across the continent in speed and luxury. In 1957 it gained twin SU carburetors, and these are big SU carburetors, far larger than you would see on most other things. Certainly your little Mini would be dwarfed by them. This is the last gasp of the Rolls-Royce RR20 engine, which came out in 1922. And it's a straight six which has been developed over the years to make more and more power. It remained very smooth all along the way, but this is the last outing for this particular unit. And typical of Rolls-Royce and Bentley, they don't like to give any actual figures. It's just adequate. 0 to 60 though was about 13 seconds, if that gives you a clue. Now around the back of the car, the design does resolve itself quite nicely. These swage lines on the wings turn into very small finlets, tiny fin-like things with this elegant indicator and brake lights down there, and these huge overriders on the bumper. And this boot lid really does feel more like an epitome of the word trunk rather than boot, because, you know, it's the way it sits the back of the car, like an old-time car. And incidentally, GB is 100% right for this car. Never mind this UK nonsense that you have to stick on stickers these days. This is Great Britain at its finest. Open the boot up, or the trunk possibly. That feels so interestingly sprung and damped. It's all just so smooth, it's amazing. Everything's carpeted. There's a big light with interesting pressings in the lens. You've got a big spare wheel just there, battery just there, so the actual luggage space isn't that vast considering how big the car is, interestingly. And also, it's quite a high lip, so not ideal for taking things to the airport. Before we climb in, take a look at these door handles, these lovely open teardrops that you put your fingers into, push the little button, and it just glides open. It really does just seem to move on oil. It's absolutely wonderful. You can see this car was sold by Frank Dale and Stepsons of King Street in London. Well, looking at the design of that car, I suspect maybe they resold it later on rather than originally. Let's climb in out of the sun. It's quite a step up. It's almost like getting into an SUV, the height into the vehicle. And these big leather armchairs are extremely comfortable. You just drift into them and it's like being in a proper old gentleman's club. The wood of the dashboard is exquisite. It is absolutely beautiful. And it wraps around. When you open the door, it matches perfectly just here to here, so that it's almost seamless, just a small gap. Wood carries on around the window frame where you can see the chrome of the door. And then you have this, I think it's called West of England fabric up on the ceiling. And as you look at the wood, you notice more and more details. So it's not just the central pattern. We've got a contrasting inlay around the edges, top and bottom here. Oh, it's just wonderful. And it's everywhere as well. The tea shelf is minimal, just the right size for a small cup and saucer to sit on there, no problem at all. And starting on the left, we have a nice little chrome grab handle for the passenger, small glove box, just the right size for actual gloves. Look how thick that timber is though, that's proper thick quality wood. Little clock over on the left hand side, a Smith's clock. Many unlabelled chrome things. We've got wipers and demist here, lights and heater here, all just matching items, not particularly usefully laid out, but then modern cars do the same thing. Our ignition switch is in the centre above our little medium wave, long wave radio. Then we have our speedometer and rev counter, both of which swing the wrong way, if that makes sense. They start off at 1 o'clock and swing around to 12 like a clock, going clockwise. This thing redlines at 4,250 RPM, which is diesel levels of slowness in terms of RPMs. But it's not about performance in this car, it's about luxury, although the Continental is meant to be the fast one. In the centre we've got 4 small subdials, oil, water, fuel and electricity amps. But it's all just beautifully laid out and everything is just so fine. The wood is beautiful. Unlabelled Bakelite switch just here, which I'm sure does something important. That's probably indicators, I'm going to guess. Organ pull just there, which does something. Then we have a gear shift, starting neutral at the top, down through 4, 3, 2, which is the top gear that position will allow you to go into, all the way down into reverse if you go around the dog leg. We have an organ pull handbrake down below the dashboard. Next to that, you might be able to just make out a small black handle just there. That is the bonnet release. It's not a bonnet release as you would expect in a modern car. Once you've put the bonnet back down again, you have to pull it tight like on an E-Type. Finally, we have the steering wheel, a huge spindly rimmed affair, triple spokes. It's very elegant. It is very pre-war. It's almost First World War in its style. Centre of which we have a aluminium or stainless steel disc, which I believe is our horn. Only works with the engine on. That is extremely a rich pop. the richest part you'll hear all day. You might hear the engine just idling as well. Beautiful, delicious, melodious. Now, because it's a column shift, there's nothing down here, and the transmission sits between the chassis rails of this big, solid chassis, truck chassis effectively, that's sitting beneath us. So there's virtually no intrusion of the transmission tunnel, so it's almost flat in between. We do have a grilled area here, which that brassy gold grille effect is such a 1950s embellishment. Just seeing that takes you to that era. Underneath that we have got our slide out ashtray in the lower wood section. Let's take a quick look at the door. Oops. So we have got very few items in the door. We've got a large armrest which is raisable and lowerable on the little toggle just there. We have a door release which doubles as a door lock. Manual windows, surprisingly, for a car of this value. This car was 44% more expensive than the standard Bentley. So that is a lot of money. Then we have a big door pocket just there for items, and an elasticated door pocket as well, all leather apart from the small amount of high quality carpet on the bottom. The final thing in the front is these amazing sun visors. They're translucent tints. They just have a little cutout to go around the rear view mirror, so they don't block your view, they just take the harshness out of it. And then we've got the back. Let's have a look in the back. And once again, our little teardrop door handle. More very fine wood. This time the ashtray is in the top with the chrome lid, top of the door. Same door furniture, door handle, window winder, very elegant again. Nice elasticated door pocket. The carpet is as good as you're going to get. The leather is as good as you're going to get. The door opening is surprisingly small, actually. Not that high, not that long. So you have to take a little bit of a head bob to get in. And you find yourself in here looking at an amazing view of that wonderful dashboard. Considering how tight it is and how big the car is, it's not too cramped, but it's not huge either. There is a lot of headroom. What I thought was a sunroof on the front of the car is actually a recess to give you a little bit more headroom rather than an opening area. I missaw it. The seats, like the front, are extremely comfortable. We have a big armrest just here which will fold away if you want it to. Likewise, there is an armrest in the front down there. This is just such a nice view. But it is, yeah, interesting considering how big the car is on the outside, how not big it is on the rear seat passengers. Right, so let's fire this thing up. Starts on the key. Little throttle blip. Oh, lovely. Pull ourselves down to 4. Handbrake off. Wait for the enormous lorry to go past. And away we go. Just tickle the throttle, the nose lifts, and we're off. This is dignified travel, it really is. Not a bad turning circle for such a big wagon. 4-speed gearbox just shifts quite smoothly. It's a proper old school slosh box doing its thing underneath us. And it's very comfortable. You can feel the surface is a bit bouncy and a bit bumpy, but this is just drifting over everything in a really lovely, calm manner. You can feel a little bit of vibration from the wheels, but not the bumps. Top speed on this thing is 103 miles an hour, and I'd be willing to bet that would be a very relaxed place to be, even at sort of 3 figures worth of speed still. A gentleman who's driven in his Rolls Royce, but he drives himself in his Bentley, and this is a wonderful experience. This is just so glidingly smooth. Nice powerful brakes, really good in fact. Now, these big wallowy armchairs are a little bit too easy to get very comfortable in. You sink into them and almost slide forward. There are no seat belts, which is a little bit scary. There's a grab handle on the B post, not that it'll do me much good in this position. And with this big soft suspension, if you nail the brakes, the front does dip quite alarmingly. But it does stop incredibly well. I can't do a panic stop right now. There is a van fairly close behind us. We're doing about 35 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, which I'm sure is annoying the hell out of him. But this is a big car on a narrow road. For a car like this, which is very good all-round condition with a couple of minor paint imperfections, we're looking at 80 to 100,000 pounds, depending how the auction runs next week. That is a lot of money in anyone's book. So I don't want to bend it. The steering on this thing is very, very light. The power steering and that huge wheel mean you just swing through a corner. And with those raised little eyelets on top of the wings and the B in the centre, it's very easy to position the thing on the road. Fortunately, 1.9 metres sounds like a lot in terms of width, but it's actually not that vast by modern standards. Your Audi Q7, for example, will give it a bit of a run for its money in terms of girth. There we go. Indicators are here on this little Bakelite toggle on the left-hand side. The only problem I'm having driving this car, despite how big everything is that the space around the pedals is surprisingly tight, so getting my foot from the accelerator to the brake is actually quite tricky. Ah, good, someone's turn around. Turning around a barge of this length and this value is not the easiest thing in the world to do. You don't want to be backing it into some farm entrance and clonking something. Now, this car does come from an era when quality and luxury were measured in how good your timber inserts and how fine your leather and carpets were, rather than how big your TFT touchscreens are. And this does have that sewn up. The fit and finish on this car are absolutely second to none. Even after half a century, the doors feel like they're floating on oil and clonk shut with bank vault solidity. Everything about the car is amazing. There are a few little touches that mark it out as a car of the mid-century. The automatic transmission, which goes to neutral but not park. That'll be though because it's an American gearbox, bought in for the purpose. Behind the steering wheel we have got these lovely, behind the steering wheel we've got these two little tiny plus and minus peg holes, because back at that point, if you wanted to run an accessory, that's how you plugged it in. Your nighttime parking lights on the side of the road and that kind of thing, they're all run through those. Now I'm no snob, but when I get behind one of these, when I get behind the wheel of one of these things, I do realise I was probably born to the wrong family. This is definitely right for me. Considering how big this car is, it is incredibly easy to drive and to position on the road. I do like it very much indeed. I think I would like to add one of these to my collection. I might need to sell literally everything I own, but it'd be nice to add one to the collection. The little mirrors are actually surprisingly good considering how tiny they are. It does bounce and waft in an interesting manner. That's quite hard to see through. Imagine the ignominy of being hit by an Audi in a car as fine as this. I believe it was Coco Chanel who said fashions fade but style remains, and that is 100% true in the case of this car. The fashions of the 50s may have passed, but this thing remains extremely stylish and very beautiful. And I would suggest it could hustle quite well if you wanted it to. The gearbox is a proper old slush-o-matic, but the suspension is rather pliant and does bounce along quite well, so I think you could hustle it through a corner. It would lean a lot, but those huge tyres would grip. One thing I did discover along the way is how this armrest moves. It hinges at the front, oops, and also slides forward like that. How bizarre is that? That's not a turning. Wow, this thing is a beast. I want one. I really, really want one. I need to sell my house and then I can come and live in this thing. It's beautiful. Dust off the tweeds and the shotgun. This thing is coming home with me. Well, thanks for joining me on this rather impressive ride out. I do feel incredibly underdressed for the occasion, I have to say, because I don't think I even own clothes good enough to wear in this car, to be perfectly honest. It is rather wonderful. If you've enjoyed this review, then please do hit like and subscribe, and join me again next time driving something completely different. Well, it would be hard to match this one. Well, it would be hard to match this one anyway, wouldn't it?